This is the Inner Chief Podcast, episode 325.
Learn to find out, to simplify, find out what works, and stop doing all the stuff, all of the filler around it that we think we have to do, because that's what's been done in the past. I mean, why are we doing this stuff? I mean, how is it actually helping? So to just filter out all the stuff that doesn't really help us get where we want to go.
G'day, this is the Inner Chief Podcast, episode 325, and today we continue our Best Of series with Golf Master Coach Steve Bann on coaching the world's best golfers, turning practice into confidence and the improvement lifecycle.
I am your host, Greg Layton, founder of Chiefmaker and the Council of Chiefs, and I believe there is a great chief in all of us, and that through listening to the stories, strategies and techniques of great CEOs, each of you can find and leave your own legacy through your work. The Inner Chief Podcast is where you will learn how to think and make moves like a CEO. For over a decade, I've helped CEOs and senior executives around the world boldly lead change, inspire their people, and leave a legacy. So every 2 weeks, I'll bring a deep diving interview with one of these CEOs or another one of a mid to large organisation so you can find your own path to greatness as an executive.
In this episode, I chat to Steve Bann. Steve is a partner in the BannLynchMcDade, a coaching team that has coached their students to 29 USPGA Tour wins and multiple international amateur and professional titles. After turning professional in 1979, Stephen played on the Australian PGA Tour from 81 to 96. However, since 1996, Steve has travelled the world coaching at over 40 majors and 5 President's Cups. His students have included Stuart Appleby, Robert Allenby, Ian Baker-Finch, Greg Norman, Vijay Singh and Adam Scott. He has been described by his clients as the most knowledgeable golf coach in the world. He's also the author of Simply Golf, Back to Basics. Today, you're going to hear Steve talk all about why a lot of coaches focus on fixing technique, which leads to a reactive cycle and often has the opposite effect. How the improvement life cycle of technical, physical, mental and strategic changes is a far greater process to undertake. The 6,500 skills professionals have to learn to master golf and how this translates to the business world, and the 4-step routine to gaining confidence.
G'day, Chief. Now, are you in need of an operating rhythm? An operating rhythm is that schedule of meetings. Actually, it's a bit more than that. It's a system, the drum and beat of your team. And what it will do if you get it right is it will create the culture and drive the results. It will bond the team together. It will handle risk, help you see around corners, create creativity, embed the rituals and traditions of your team. There is so much that an operating rhythm can deliver when done right. So, Chief, if you'd like to know how to do that, just get our full free resource on it. Just go to chiefmaker.com/operating rhythm, and there is a detailed PDF there with all the hows and whats and whys, some of the pitfalls, and an example schedule for you to follow. chiefmaker.com/operating rhythm and create the drumbeat for success in your team.
Righto, Chief. Let's listen to our Best Of series guest, Steve Bann.
Steve Bann, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Greg.
Mate, it is an absolute pleasure to sit here. We're at Kingston Heath Golf Courses, one of the most beautiful golf courses on the Sandbelt here in Melbourne. And mate, it's just fascinating to hear. We've been talking for the last 20 minutes about your background. Can you tell us, how did you grow up? What was it like for you growing up as a young boy who wanted to be a golf pro?
Well, as a young boy, I guess I didn't want to be a golf pro, but I grew up in middle class suburban Melbourne background. Dad was a butcher, Mum's a primary school teacher, and I just had one of those upbringings where I was encouraged and supported, and a whole lot of kids in the neighbourhood, and we just spent time chasing each other, climbing trees, playing every type of sport we could out in the street, and that was my sort of early childhood. And then I got into music. I loved playing electric guitar, and I always fancied seeing myself as some type of rock star. So there was a bit of a I started golf as a caddy, actually, as a 12-year-old. Started caddying at Riversdale, which Mum still only lives a couple of streets from there. I'm still a member at Riversdale Golf Club, and that was the old way of starting golf. We were able to play 2 or 3 nights a week after school if we caddied on the weekend, and there was a bunch of us, and we learned to sort of play and compete against each other. And as I progressed through, I won 3 sort of state schoolboy level championships, and that was all going well, except my hair started getting longer, and I had the earrings and the electric guitar. And golf being the conservative game that it was, there was a few conflicts going on with the establishment. So,
tell me who was the rock star you wanted to be more than any other?
Oh, look, I was a big heavy metal fan. Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, that sort of music.
The classics.
Yeah, the classics.
Fantastic. I love it.
So 17, I was actually one of the best amateurs in the state, and I didn't even make the second state team. Now I had a pretty fiery temper, but so did a lot of the other young guys playing in the state squad. And problem is, you've got a fiery temper, long hair and earrings, and a motorbike. Then you are the one that's missing out on the teams. I just became disenchanted with golf and gave the game away. Stopped playing from the time I was 17. So that was it. I was never going to be a golf pro. And at about I was nearly 19. My mum kind of tricked me into coming and playing in a foursomes event with her up at Riversdale. So I turned up at Riversdale to play with my mum. I hadn't played golf for, I think it was nearly 2 years, and play with Mo, and actually quite hit the ball quite well, and quite enjoyed in playing. And then the pennant manager spotted me, and came up to me, and I'm not sure whether this was planned as well. He said, "Look, we need somebody to make up our pennant team this year. Would you be interested in playing some pennant golf for us again?" And of course, I've got long hair, earrings, and I say, "Yeah, that'd be fine, but only if my girlfriend can caddy for me." So I don't know what I was thinking then. So believe it or not, no female had actually ever caddied in pennant. Very conservative. Back in the late 70s game back then. So they agreed to that. So then I still had the long hair and the earrings, and my wife, my girlfriend, who's been my wife for 35 years since, she caddied for me. She didn't know anything about golf because we met when I was thinking I was a musician. So we went to, I played pennant, and as the year went on, I ended up playing number 1 by the end of the pennant series. And we got down to the pennant final, and we had 3 wins and 3 losses, and I'm the last remaining match out at Southern Golf Club in the pennant final, and I was 3 down with 3 to play, and I birdied 16, I birdied 17. All the club, the members, all the other players, everyone's out there, it's hanging on me, and I'm coming up the last hole, and I hit a good second shot into the last. My opponent missed his birdie putt, so I've got this to go into sudden death, so Riversdale's a chance of winning the pennant. Well, I've hit this putt. I still have dreams about it. Goes in the hole, full 360, comes out, sits on the left, stays out. We lose the pennant. But right at that point in time, I thought, I know what I really want to do. And I'd started having some lessons during pennant off Jeff Flanagan, who was the pro at Huntingdale. And Jeff said, "Look, I've got a spot opening up in middle of the year for a new trainee professional. Would you be interested in doing it?" And I said, "Yeah, look, I think so." So I've gone from musician in the space of a few months, and now I'm going to start my apprenticeship as a golf professional at Huntingdale Golf Club. So I turn up, and I start first week at Huntingdale Golf Club, and Jeff Flanagan says to me, "Steve," he's waited till this time, first day at work, he said, "Love the hair, love the earrings. If both of them look like that tomorrow, don't come into work." I've still got the holes in the ear, but so I turned up for work the next day, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, fantastic. That's a great story to kick off. So how did you go from Yeah, and I've spoken to former pros or pros that have been around a long time. In the early days, it was very, very different to get onto tour. You had to go through being a pro at a golf club in order to earn the right.
Yes.
So what was that like for you in those days?
Yeah, look, there was no other way. There was no tour schools. You actually had to do your apprenticeship to be a pro, so you could then start playing on the professional tours. So that's what I did. But fortunately, back then they had what was called a national invite. They still have a similar system. So I crammed the whole 3 years. I did all my assignments, all my exams. I must admit, my mum did most of them for me. The academic stuff, the school teacher. That was the support I still had. But I mean, I could play. So I actually got a national or state and a national invite after 12 months. And even though I still had to finish my apprenticeship, I was able to play on the Australasian tour. So I came out in late 1980s. 1980. I was already playing pro-ams, and start of 1981, I was able to play in tournaments like the Vic Open and Aussie Open and those events.
Tell me about tour life. What is that like for a young man, touring around the country playing golf?
Well, we touched on it before we started today. Where my early we had a tour, and I think I can say this. We had a tour which still runs today, but it's not the same. And it was the Queensland tour. It was a series of pro-ams, and we went everywhere from Southport to Weipa, and we drove for hours and with just convoys. And there was a bunch of us.
So this is all over country Australia, just way out in the middle of nowhere.
Blackwater, Dysart, Moranbah, places where there's just every country town in Australia there's a golf course, and we go out there. And the locals would put us all up and feed us and give us way too much beer, and then we'd play this one-day pro-am for this miserable person on this horrible golf course. And we called it the Waffwadam Tour, which is an acronym for what a effing waste of time and money. But look, it was fantastic.
The Waffwadam.
Anyway, so we and the golf courses were terrible, but interestingly, and that first group of young 20-somethings, playing around Australia on this Pro-Am tour. There was Wayne Grady, Ian Baker-Finch, Peter Senior, Peter Fowler, Mike Howard, all these guys who went on to tremendous international success. I mean, Wayne Grady and Ian Baker-Finch won majors. Peter Senior's been incredibly successful in business as well as golf. I mean, as a 50-year-old, Peter went on and won the Australian PGA, Australian Open and Australian Masters, which is just against the young guys. And we're all playing as a bunch of young guys on these terrible golf courses in fairly adverse conditions for no money. What was life like at the time? I would have said it was miserable, but look back, I'd do it again and again and again. It was great.
What is it, do you think, about those formative times when life was very, very different? And out of that school, as you say, came multiple major winners, successful business people, international coaches like yourself. What about that time do you think, it sounds to me like it's more effective than the current tour schools to breed so many high-performing individuals? What do you think about that time or that experience that led to that sort of generation of performance?
Look, the one thing that we all had in common was we all loved to compete. We loved to play the game and loved to compete. We didn't have any technology. There was no high-speed video cameras and force plates and launch monitors, but we all found a way to play. And the conditions of the golf courses were terrible. And some of them were dry, some of them were sloppy, some of them were the grain on the grass. Gravity's supposed to make the ball go that way, but the grain was so strong that it actually go against the gravity. So you just had to figure out your way of being able to score. And I think, along the way, we learned to deal with adversity. We learned to find ways to get on with, doing what we were trying to do better. And we're all pushing each other at a competitive level, and yet we're all supporting each other. So it was like a team. We're all striving for the same goals. But that's a beautiful thing about golf. I mean, I've been at a major championship with one major championship back at was there with Ian Baker-Finch, Payne Stewart and Mark O'Meara. They're having a practice round the day before the British Open, and they're all helping each other with different shots that they're going to be playing around the green. And that's the culture of golf. These are guys who are going to compete at the highest level against each other that week, helping each other out to prepare to play that tournament. Because at the end of the day, whoever plays the best that week holds up the trophy, and maybe it'll be your turn.
That's right. Maybe it'll be your turn, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, Steve, I was watching an online video with you, and it all speak about the main reasons why golfers aren't improving. And I think there are some fascinating parallels between that and business and professional development and people who want to be what I prefer as a pro executive, a pro leader, as opposed to a pro golfer. And there are three mistakes you mentioned. One is an obsession with technique. Two is they're stuck in a reactive cycle. And the third is no confidence. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you talk me through what this obsession is with technique, and why do people, do you think, focus on technique so much?
I think people focus on technique so much because it's tangible. You can see it. So somebody hits a bad shot, you can say, "Oh, well, I hit that bad shot because I did this." If I then work on fixing that, then I won't hit bad shots anymore. I mean, there's always something to work on. I'm too flat, I'm too upright, I'm swaying, I'm sliding, I'm spinning out. There's always something. An interesting stat is that there's more books written on golf technique than every other sport in the world combined, and yet golfers still aren't improving. Considering all the...
Can I just draw a parallel? There's probably more books written on management technique than almost any other profession combined, and some people would probably argue that managers aren't getting any better.
Yep.
Or people are stalled in their career and they're reading these books and not getting any further progression. So same parallel.
Focusing on technique, and I think you fall into that trap which we call the reactive cycle. When something goes wrong, or you're always trying to fix it. So the reactive cycle is always trying not to do something, and that's not a good cycle to get on. So in golfing terms, I hit a slice, I'm trying not to hit a slice.
Yeah, you tell a great story about how do you fix a slice, Steve? Tell me, how do you fix a slice?
Well, this is the reactive cycle where the improvement cycle. There's only three ways a golf swing will change, and it may go way beyond just golf swings, but that's my field of expertise. So one is concept, which is information. There's more books written than every other sport. There's YouTube, there's magazines, there's the Golf Channel, there's all of our friends. Everybody knows everything about golf. Every slicer in the world can now tell you exactly what they do when they slice. I get to the top, I spin out, fall back on the back foot, I cut across and I leave the face open. Why do you keep doing that? Oh, I can't stop it. I don't know. What are you supposed to do? Well, I'm supposed to get to the top, shift to my left side, drop the club on the inside, and then release. Why don't you do that? I just can't do that. And that's because our brain is doing everything to try and stop us from hitting the ball right for a right-hander with a slice. So, and that overrides anything at a conscious level. So how do you fix a slice? You teach somebody to hook the ball. Forget the slice. We're just going to get up there. Okay, how do you hook the ball? Well, the club face is close to the path. I don't care if you have to aim 40 metres right. One of my first experiences in learning golf technique was I got a book called Practical Golf, John Jacobs. It's still a great book. And he talks about alignment, and he has this beautiful graphic of standing on a railway track. So your feet are on the inside rail, the ball's on the outside rail. So everything's lined up parallel, and that's how you hit the ball straight. So when I was about 12 or 13, Sam Sleed came out to Australia, was playing exhibition matches against Peter Thompson, and our PE teacher took us down to Yarra Yarra to watch him, and I jumped in, run down. I remember on the seventh hole at Yarra Yarra, I jumped down there where Sam's hit his drive, and I'm right behind us, so I've got a perfect view of his shot coming in. And Sam Snead's aiming 20 metres right of the pin. I'm thinking, I can help this guy. He's aiming 20 metres.
Here's the coach coming out at an early date.
His train track is going way off to the right. Anyway, he started the ball about 10 metres right of the pin and drew it into about 6 feet. Here's me going from imperial to metric, but back and forth. But anyway, so I thought, And then I've got him behind him for a few more shots on the day, and that's what he's done on every shot. So I'm back on like practical golf. John Jacobs, technique. I'm supposed to be standing this way. One of the greatest players in history is aiming 20 yards right. The year later, Lee Trevino comes out to Australia. He's playing at Royal Melbourne. I think it was the Chrysler Classic. Raced down there to watch Lee Trevino play and get him behind Lee Trevino. He's aiming 40 metres left. Starting at 20 metres left and hitting 20-yard cuts back to a couple of metres from the pin. So two of the greatest players, multiple major winners in history, are aiming 60 metres apart, playing the same game. So what is correct with technique? And, trying to perfect the technique of parallels and set squares or whatever, so that was a great, very early lesson and experience for me to know that it's what works for you. And as long as you abide with the laws of force and motion and you're consistent with it, you can become a player.
Now, you were talking about this obsession with technique, but one of the challenges there is that and you talk about that there's also the physical and there's a mental and there's a strategic as well. And those four things combined, particularly with golf, lead to a more well-rounded performance. Can you explain how those parts integrate and why do people sort of avoid the mental, the physical and the strategic when some of them aren't as hard as people might think?
Well, I think, in answer to the question, the techniques, there's all that information out there. If I'm working on my swing plane or my pivot or my release or my lever system, or, I'm always working on something, I'm trying to swing it like Adam Scott, or no one ever tries to swing it like Jim Furyk, but there's one, fourth biggest money winner of all time. But, that's, there's another great player. I was actually a little bit off track, but I was asked by ESPN interview a few years ago who I thought some of the great coaches in the world were, and I said I'd have to put Mike Furyk, Jim Furyk's dad, right up there, because he's actually a golf coach. And they said, how could you say that? Well, I said, because Jim Furyk swings, and as David Ferry said, his swing looks like an octopus falling out of a tree. No one ever asked why the octopus was up there, but that's what it looks like. But he gets the job done. But, I've heard Mike Furyk say that, Jim used to come down after school, hit some balls. I'd get him to hit some draws and fades and highs and lows. He said, I knew it didn't look right, but I didn't know enough about technique to try and fix anything. So I just let him go. So to me, he's a great coach. He had him hitting shots, learning to play, didn't interfere and say, you won't be able to play well until you do these things right. So there's another world champion golfer for a long period of time who's done it his own way. Why do they stay away from the intangibles like mental and tactical and even physical to a degree? Because it's not as easy to make the connection as if I do the hard work here, I'm going to benefit on the scorecard there. And I think so trying to make those things more tangible has always been a goal of mine, so people can make the connection as if I do this down the track, this is all going to come together at the pointy end.
Now, Chief, do you want to take your game to a new level, or that of your people? Our mini MBA in leading high performance teams now has the highest NPS of any mini MBA style program in Australia at 91. Why? Because when you do the program, you get immediate and tangible performance improvement. You get dedicated time working on the business as opposed to away from it. We have a practical, real-world approach that we teach frameworks that you implement in your business as we go, and then you share and learn with your peers and with me as your coach. So the cost benefit is immediate, right? The weekly coaching sessions are live and you get a chance to ask questions direct to me and of your peers, and the time management is completely achievable because you're only spending a couple of hours a week on this at max, and those 2 hours are actually working on the business. So if you want to add something that really changes your game, that helps you become a real master of transformation and change, and to inspire your people and love your job, check out chiefmakeup.com/mini-MBA.
And you're a bit of an advocate of scorecards and assessing your own ability, analysing yourself. And therefore, when you're doing a bit of a scorecard of your own performance, make sure you put up what's my rating on technical, how am I tactically, what is my strength or mobility and other things in golf, but maybe in a business sense, is what is my fitness? How's my mental game? And I would probably add one more into business, which is the social element, which is the cultural and influence. And if you've got those technical, tactical, physical, mental, social, all ticking and all improving over time, then surely your performance will continuously be uplifting.
Look, I couldn't agree more. I mean, in golf, we bring it down to the technical, physical, tactical, and mental side. And if we use the improvement cycle model, the idea is, let's just say that if we can run 1 month improvement cycles. If you've got an improvement cycle going technically, physically, mentally, and strategically every month times 12 every year, you have to be making progress. So,
well, I think that I look at most golfers and athletes, and I look at a lot of people in business, and I think none of them would be running one cycle a year. Yes. They might do an annual cycle, a bit of an annual review where they look back at their performance, but then they're not doing a structured development plan to continuously get better, which is something you talk about as well, is make sure it's structured and deliberate.
It's pretty straightforward. The assessment's the important part to get right, because if we make an assessment and we come up with the incorrect conclusion, then we set ourselves on a pathway which is going to be potentially a waste of time. But at least at the end of that, if we reassess, we can then go, okay, that wasn't the right step forward. So make an assessment, set a goal which has to be realistic based on time and capability to be fair. So there's no point setting goals that somebody probably isn't ready for or not capable of doing. Put activities in place to achieve that goal, come back and reassess.
That's a nice way to do it. You could say for yourself, you might have a goal in relation to work or even away from work. It might be even just getting fit and healthy again. You set yourself that goal, then look at your technical, tactical, physical, mental, social, give yourself a score and at least one outcome or one thing you're going to work on in each of those elements. Then revisit in a month once you've implemented those changes, and you should be closer to your goal, right?
Yeah. Or otherwise you just work hard and just react to everything along the way, and you can hit 500 balls a day. One of my favourite interviews, which I had on an old VHS tape that just disintegrated, was with Ben Hogan late in his life. And
Ben Hogan, the great golfer.
Ben Hogan, the great, legendary golfer.
One of the most beautiful golf swings anyone will ever see.
Near-death accident and went on to win more majors. And but Ben was known for his practice. Just practicing all day, hitting hundreds of balls, thousands of balls. And the interviewer asked him, Ben, how did you maintain the motivation to hit 500 balls a day? Right to the very end of your career. And he looked at him inquisitively and said, I never counted. Who counts golf balls?
Exactly.
He said, I couldn't wait to get out there to work on a new skill. And if that added up to 500 balls a day, so I was getting better. So, but the thing that Ben supposedly only had a few balls, 20 or 30 in his golf bag. He hit them down to the end of the range, tipped them all in the pile, sit under a tree, have a smoke. I'm not recommending that. Think about what he just did and then whack them back the other way. So the way he practiced was more like golf as well. It wasn't just random ball beating. It was, okay, this lot of 20 balls, I'm going to do this. Have a think about what I could have done better, what I could have changed. Just observe, experience, move on. Now, answer to the assessment bit is, this is something I've got a lot better at over the years, and I guess it's only experience. Scares the hell out of our young coaches when you talk about, because it'd be much easier if you could just put somebody up on video and say, here's Adam Scott's swing, here's your swing, your club is too steep coming down the downswing, here's a drill to fix it, go away and you'll be a better golfer. That would be much easier, but that's not why golf swings change. So golf swings change as a reaction to ball flight, contact at the conditions you're playing in, or a physiological change, age, injury, fatigue, diet, other sports and activities. So our job in the assessment is to find out why the swing has changed, because the only way you can fix it is by identifying the real bottleneck, the real constraint. if you go and fix it with some theory of new swing method or technology, when the whole reason that your swing's changed is because you're tight in the back because of some activity you're doing, and now you're lifting up off it, the concept of trying not to lift up off it on the backswing is not going to help. And that's kind of reactive stuff. So.
Yeah, and I draw a parallel into the business world where perhaps someone is delivering a presentation to a board or senior leaders, and it's maybe one of their first times, and they get it wrong. And they go back and they just look at every word they said, and they draw this immediate conclusion. The thing that went wrong was the content of the presentation. But if they went maybe an hour or two before, maybe it was their setup mentally. What they did before, did they run around like crazy, or did they get themselves in the game? What was the quality of their rehearsal? Did they film themselves in advance? Did they have too much coffee? Were they nervous because they went down that track? Were they too tired from the night before for one reason or another? The root cause analysis is so important because sometimes the content of your presentation is perfect.
Yes.
But it's being impacted by so many other factors, and getting that root cause right can make a huge difference to your performance uplift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And look, just on that coffee, on the diet, I mean, I worked out very early on that if I have a coffee before I play, I've got the yips on the first green. I mean, you've got that, because you add the caffeine to the nervous anticipation of playing a sport.
Yeah.
And then it's just, the whole thing's compounded. So that, the big three in golf are hydration, caffeine and sugar.
Yeah, and look at the business world. That's what's sitting around the office all day, every day, and you go into a key meeting and you're wondering why your hand is shaking a bit. Well, there's some nervous energy because you're in front of someone who's important, or it's a difficult conversation, and you've just doped yourself with a bit of caffeine as well, and you're wondering why.
Yeah. And then you go and judge your performance and probably start making an assessment of, okay, I went wrong because of this, and it could have been something as simple as... So we really have to have a look at it. I use an example of finding the real constraint or what the bottleneck is, and this is a real life one that I went through quite a few years ago with Stuart Appleby, and he was having a tough green, or a tough year on the greens, where his putting average had gone out from 1.7 putts per green in regulation to 1.75, and that equates to a couple of shots a tournament, which is a lot of money when you're on the PGA Tour. So he's working his butt off trying to improve his putting, and everything we looked at, technically it was good. His putting program was good. His mental approach to his putting was good, but his putting average just wasn't getting any better. So fortunately on the PGA Tour, we have stats for everything now. And so I went and had a look. I thought there's got to be more to this. So I went and I had a look at his average distance from the pin. And his average distance from the pin had gone out by about 5 feet from the previous couple of seasons. So you think, it's his approach shots, not his putting at all. So we'll go and work on his approach shots. So you think, oh, I've got it. And I go, hang on a second. I'm going to have a look at something else. So I take back another layer, and where is the approach shots coming from? They're actually coming out of the rough more often than they used to come out of the rough, from about 20 yards further back than they used to come out of the rough, because the ball that lands in the rough. So now it's
harder to control on the green.
Harder to control on the green, and it's further back because it doesn't get the run on the fairway. So he's probably hitting a couple of clubs longer, no spin. So I think, where's the real constraint? He's driving it like rubbish.
There it is.
There it is. When we looked at his driving average, he'd gone from 65% down to low 50s. We've got to hit more fairways. Hit more fairways, get more shots out of the fairway from closer to the green. You hit it closer to the pin, you make the putts. So we could have spent a year working on his putting, and it wasn't until we'd spent some time working on his putting that we went back and stripped away 3 or 4 layers before we realised his driving was what was holding his putting back.
Beautiful. I think that is one of the most fantastic analogies of where we focus all our effort on something that is in front of us. We get myopic at the problem that is happening to us every single day, without looking upstream or downstream, or more upstream really, at other problems that might be causing this issue for us. So that's a wonderful analogy. Let's broaden the horizon and look for other potential root causes of the problem you're facing. It might be a business process that's failing, it might be an individual that's not going so well, it might be yourself.
look for the factors that are driving that. Now, let's talk about confidence, because every professional, no matter what industry, at some point in their career is going to have likely a crisis of confidence. Whether they admit it out externally, I know a lot of people lack confidence on the inside, but have a lovely veneer of or a show of confidence. Can you talk to me about what is confidence and how do people develop it?
I believe, and sort of our group of like-minded people believe, we have to talk about confidence in a language that people understand and they get. So we like to call it knowing. When you know something, you're confident. So most people are performing confidently every day. Now, what I mean by that is when you fail, you're actually demonstrating confidence, because the process of getting there is exactly the same. You've based it on a past experience that you knew was going to happen. You couldn't get your head out of that space, and it happened again. In golfing terms, last time I played this hole, I sliced it into the trees on the right. I got up. I remembered the last time I sliced it into the trees on the right, so I've rehearsed that mentally. I've got up and I've done it again. Beautiful. Works every time. I like to say that negative confidence works 100% of the time, and the unfairness of golf is positive confidence works between 50 and 70.
Yeah, it's more like
but negative works every time.
Yeah.
Every time. So the confidence is knowing. So we try to prepare to know, and the only way you can prepare to know, there's the difference between optimism and faith. They're closely linked. Self-efficacy, all those things we need, self-belief. We need all of those things to drive the confidence. But confidence is knowing. So you can't know something until you've actually experienced it. So how do we rehearse to experience it? In golf, technique, I say that technique is only 30% of confidence. You get your technique perfect, and at best you'll only be 30%. The next 30% is skills. In golf, there's 11 shot categories: driver, fairway, woods, long irons, mid irons, short irons, chipping, pitching, bunkers, and short, mid, and long putts. There's 11 categories. There's about 9 skills in each of those categories: high, low, normal, draw, fade, and straight. There's about 8 lies, and there's about 8 different wins. There's about 6,500 skills. So if you've got your
Sounds like business.
Yeah, that's right. So if you're working on your technique, got your technique perfect, well, so what? I mean, how many times do you actually get to stand in business on the driving range mat with no wind? It just
doesn't happen.
Yeah, so you have to...
You're in a boardroom or you're in a meeting and someone's giving you heat.
And that's why, getting back to the WAF tool, that was...
Yeah.
We didn't realise what we were learning along the way was to deal with all of these different skills and ways of okay, when that happens, I do this. Because last time it happened, I learnt from it, and that's what knowing is. So by practicing all of the skills, so turning the technique into the skills gives us 60% of confidence. Well, hang on. So where's the next? Well, that's, in golf we call it testing. You've got to test something. You've got to put it into a test situation where you challenge it and you test it and you see whether it actually works. So in golf, the biggest intimidation in golf is the boundaries. It's never the target. So it's what's around the target is the intimidation. So
the bunkers and the water.
The bunkers, the water, the out of bounds fence, the trees, all of that type of stuff. Of course, we're on the range. We're hitting balls. So I'll hit the ball. If I don't like the result, I pull another ball over and hit it again. So
I think that's sort of like in business. It's what if someone did this? What if someone says that? Or what if it's taken the wrong way? Or what if I fail? Look, all those things are almost like what people visualise or create their own bunkers, their own water hazards.
And that's fine to create all of those, as long as you go, when that happens, I'm going to do this.
I know the outcome. I know the target.
I hope it doesn't going to happen. It's not going to happen, because if you say, I hope it's not going to happen, guess what? It's the first thing that's going to happen, and you won't know what to do. So to start with, we have to visualise what we'll do and anticipate it will happen and this is what I'm going to do. But then hopefully when it does happen and then you do succeed, then you will have some success and that's what you'll be able to draw. So on the practice fairway, for example, we use the 10% rule, 100-metre shot, 10-yard boundary, 3 in a row. 3 in a row in practice through there with that skill equals 1 in a row out in the golf course. So if I can do it 3 times in a row through a 10-metre gap with my pitching wedge from 100, when I've got my 100 shot out on the golf course the next day or soon after, I recall that practice success and I choose to run that program rather than the last. And that's an important thing. You have to choose to run that program.
Okay, so 100 metres out, if you've done it 3 times, you've experienced it then, it's in the muscle memory and you're recalling the visualisation.
Now we're getting close to knowing. So I would say then you're at 90% confident.
Can I draw the parallel to where you're at now? Because I think this is really important. You just say you're giving a presentation. You learn all the techniques. You start learning the skills of how to deliver a message. You then do the practice, the rehearsal. Now you've done it 3 times right. All right, so now we're at 90% confidence. What's the last 10%?
Well, the last 10% is now you're right at the coalface, and you're in competition, and you've got a 100-metre shot, and you're saying to yourself, "This is just like the one I did 3 in a row last night. I know I can do this," and that's what confidence is.
Yeah,
and choosing to remember that I did this 3 times in a row, go through your full routine. And I'll just quickly run over the routine. So the 4-step routine is actually 5, but the 4 steps is, number 1, decide on the shot. So you do an analysis of distance, wind, and all that sort of stuff. Number 2 is prepare for the shot. So when you're preparing for the shot, you're having your practice swings or you're visualising, feelising, you're preparing for the shot. Now, hopefully, you're repeating a swing that you know has succeeded in the past. This is just like that shot.
Drawing on your memory bank.
Drawing on your memory bank. And number 3 is the setup routine: grip, stance, ball position, posture, and aim. So now you're setting up for that shot that you've decided on playing, prepared to play, set up to play. Step 4 in the routine is the easiest thing to do and the hardest thing to do at the same time. The reason it is the easiest thing to do is because there is no further thought required. The reason it is the hardest thing to do is because there is no further thought required. You've got to get out of your own way and trust and commit, and only you know on every individual shot whether you actually do that.
So step 4 is hit the ball.
Step 4 is hit it without rethinking it. And I've heard Tiger Woods say in interviews after shooting over par, "Tiger, what went wrong today? You shot 3 over. I was happy with my execution on every shot today." What he's talking about is he decided, he saw it, felt it, set up for it, and executed. It just didn't happen.
It didn't happen. And some days it just doesn't happen.
It just doesn't happen. So rather than go and get all reactive and I've got to go and rebuild my golf swing, you just know that some days it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think about this. I'll keep drawing back to the business context as an example. So you maybe have a difficult conversation with someone who's in your team or a peer or even your boss. So many of us walk into those meetings and those interactions without any forethought. We're sort of half prepared. We've half done, maybe in our own minds, hallucinated on how the conversation might go. But if you go back to your model, the very first thing is you think about some of the techniques you might use, and that might be the way you use certain phrases or even the quality of the way you present information. Then you build the skill of how to have an end-to-end difficult conversation. Right. Then you go and do the range practice. So practice it once, rehearse it, actually sit down end to end and rehearse it, rehearse the tough scenarios, rehearse things that would be unexpected that you might think might just happen. Then you go into the meeting and you're doing a little process, right? You set it up in your mind, you decide how it's going to happen, you prepare for it, you hit the shot and you trust. What you're then drawing on is a memory bank of the rehearsals you've already been through. And it makes it so much easier. when you get in those difficult scenarios. And then in the future, the memory bank is also calling on the previously well-run difficult conversation.
And that's it. And it's knowing. So how do we create situations? First of all, we have to imagine it and decide what we're going to do when it happens, but then prepare for it as much as possible and have all of our contingencies in place. And then we just keep growing with that. But I think the most vital step, which, these days most people understand, the principles behind anchoring. Everything that stays in our long-term memory is because there was an emotional shift attached to it. We might remember, our first bike and our 12th-year-old birthday party and all of those type of things. We don't know what we're doing the day before or the day after. Sometimes we're too hard on ourselves, and there's more emotion attached to our failures, negative emotions, than there is to our successes. And eventually in our memory bank, in that long-term memory bank, there's an imbalance. There's way more successes, but because I prepared for that, that was going to happen anyway, we don't actually acknowledge it and anchor it as much as we should. And I think Tiger Woods is brilliant at this. We see Tiger get angry and throw clubs and curse and do all of those things, but we see him when he does something that only Tiger Woods does, gets super excited and pumped up and dance across the green, pumping his fist. I said, Tiger, you just hold a 6-foot putt. You've done that a million times. What's he doing? He's making sure that the emotional anchoring of that success outweighs the...
Yeah, and how often do we celebrate our success?
The human anchor. And I call it human because we're human beings. Of course you got to get angry. You got to get frustrated because that's what drives you to get better. But if that's all we can remember, because that's the only thing we have emotional shifts attached to, eventually you can't see yourself succeeding at anything.
Yeah. And I walk around a lot of offices all over the world, and I see a lot of people very upset and angry. I see very few people fist pumping, very excited, not as many celebrations. Maybe we have an end of year celebration or an end of month, some drinks or something. But, celebrations should be done in the moment. When you have a victory, celebrate that moment and grasp the emotional victory of what you've just done, because it can light the fuse in everyone around you. But if all we're doing every day is having disappointments and negatives, it builds up that database of frustration.
Eventually our brain goes,
I've had enough.
I'm not going there anymore.
That's right, yeah.
Whereas, we've just got to keep fueling it and feeding it with... look, and it's easy in golf. I mean, because, it's a game and love golf and we've got 6,500 skills. So that confidence cycle with a 100-metre wedge shot is technique, skill, test. Last 10% is executing competition. Put that one in the bank with some anchoring. Now you've only got 6,449 shots to take through the same process. And then we die.
Yeah, and then we're done, right? But that's mastery, isn't it?
Yeah, that's great.
If we treat our life or our profession, whatever your profession is, doesn't matter if you're a doctor or a nurse or a plumber or you're a business person or a golfer, if you treat it as a mastery process where there are a whole bunch of skills you just want to keep ticking off and getting better and better and better at, then what will happen is your momentum will just continue to go up.
Yep.
And it's exciting, that's enjoyable.
And our brain says, I can't wait, like Ben Hogan, to get out there tomorrow.
Get out there.
And work on a new skill.
Yeah.
Now, Chief, more from Steve in a minute. Recently, I interviewed Nuala Walsh, founder and CEO of Mind Equity and the author of Tune In. We spoke about the art of decision-making like a ninja and learning to control your emotions and recognise your biases. Here's what Nuala had to say about decision-making in the modern world.
I argue that because we live in this type of hyperactive, highly visual and overstimulated world, people are rushing to judgment more than ever. They hear less than ever. There are more unheard populations than ever, and people are feeling unheard. And the reality is they are unheard because we can't hear them, because we're too busy, too distracted and not pausing long enough or reflecting long enough or second guessing enough to make better decisions.
You can listen to that wonderful chat with Nuala by going to chiefmaker.com/323. And while you're there, you can subscribe to the podcast and check out all the other great interviews with CEOs. Go to chiefmaker.com/listen now. Righto, Chief. let's get back to our Best Of series with Steve Bann.
Right, Steve, this has been fascinating, and I would love to keep going and chewing your ear for another 3 hours. However, I know you're a busy man. You've got to go and do some coaching out here, and which is one of the great things about golf pros like yourself, is that you are available for coaching. And I think people would say, wow, how would I ever get coached by someone like that? Well, you know what? Here you are, Kingston Heath, Yarra Bend in Melbourne. Call him up and get some coaching. It's just remarkable to me that coaches like you are available to everyone. Right?
Yeah, well, it's not remarkable to me, but I have a lot of people. I've only just started here the last few months at Kingston Heath, but I had a guy quite a few years ago who I'd known for many years and successful in business. We were actually walking around the US Masters. He was over there as a spectator, and he was saying, I've been playing for 30 years. I've never played off better than 19. And I said, well, why don't you come and see me for a lesson? You don't give people like me lessons. I said, why don't I give people? He said, well, you just don't. So I said, well, I do. So anyway, when we got back to Australia, we started on process, and I took him through the improvement cycle and stuff that he'd never done. He'd had hundreds of lessons off everybody, and every single lesson he had was just trying to fix up something in his golf swing. So he was just a tangled mess. So we did some physical stuff for a guy, in his 50s at the time. We did some tactical stuff, and we did some technical stuff, and we took him through, and we set a 12-month goal. And I said, I think I can get you down to 12. He said, don't be ridiculous. I've never played off better than 19. He said, if you do, he said, there's a nice bonus for you coming at the end. Less than 12 months later, he shot 79 in the first round of the club championship.
Wow.
Down at the National, and broke to a handicap of 12. And true to his word, there was a nice bonus deposited into my bank account. But to me, working with a 19 handicapper in his 50s who just wanted to get better and love golf, the process of taking him through that's no different to working with a tour pro, and I love doing it. That's what's rewarding for me.
What is it like coaching a tour pro?
Well, it's F1 race drivers. They're complex characters, and they're all different, and they all react differently, and they all have different learning styles. And it's at times it's challenging, and times it's very exciting and rewarding, and it's the next best thing to playing. I mean, I wanted to be a player. I didn't want to be a coach, and so fortunately. A failed player who almost played really well, which created some opportunities. I'll just quickly, some people might remember, it was a long time ago. I had a 2-shot lead in the Australian Masters with 3 holes to play in 1988 as a club pro against 6 of the top 10 players in the world, Norman and Faldo. And so if I win the Masters, I get invites to the US and Europe, and I'm back playing again. I'm standing on the 16th hole at Huntingdale, out of bounds on the right. Every member of Box Hill Golf Club, where I'm the pro, is on the left. Riversdale members, where I'm a member, are on the left. And Huntingdale, where I did my traineeship, there's a big wall of people there. So out of bounds is on the right. So halfway through the downswing, I go the safe option. I hit this duck hook left. It missed everybody. Didn't hit a single one of my family, club members. Unplayable, double bogey. I don't win the Masters. Disaster, tragedy. I'm not back playing on the tour again. The next year I was given the state coaching job. The year after that, they introduced golf into the Victorian Institute of Sport. I was appointed the head coach at the Victorian Institute of Sport, and life went from there. So I failed player gave me the opportunity to actually coach at the highest level, and it's the next best thing. And look, being at majors, coaching a player is just a feeling that I'm very, very grateful and thankful for, and I hope anybody gets the opportunity to experience the satisfaction that I've got from doing what I do in my career. I hope they get a chance to do it as well.
Steve, what about mentors? Have you had any important mentors in your career?
Look, I've had a couple. Jeff Flanagan, who was my boss when I did my traineeship under, and really one of my first coaches. But when I was 30, I was appointed head coach of the Victorian Institute of Sport, and Dr. Frank Pike, who passed away about 7 or 8 years ago from motor neuron disease, was the CEO of the Institute of Sport. And I remember right at the very start, he got all of the coaches, all the sports science and all the management together, and he got everybody in the room together and said, we've got a couple of simple rules that if we abide by, we will succeed as an organisation. He said, number one is start every day with the question of what is the best thing you can do today to help the athlete. Number two, surround yourself with people that are smarter than you and leave your egos at home. And to me, it was easy. I looked around the room. There was a whole lot of people smarter than me. But to ask the question every day, what is the best thing that I can do to help the athlete today, is a great way to start the day. And I had many conversations with Frank in my few years, and he was always about the athlete and helping other people. And he was just so encouraging and supporting that I wanted to be the same to other people, because I wanted other people to think of me like I thought of him.
Isn't that just a beautiful way of approaching coaching or even a leadership position? If someone is in your team, treat them like an athlete. What is the best thing you can do today to help them? And the second one was about not being the smartest person in the room. Leave your egos at home. And I suppose that's about learning, right?
It's about learning and opening yourself up to being able to specialise in what you do and not trying to be everything for everybody, and learn to delegate. There's somebody a whole lot smarter than me can do that, so why don't I let them do that so I can be even better at what I do?
And one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given was by John Eales, who was the former Wallabies captain and he's now on the board of the RU and a whole range of things. But I spoke to him about being a performance coach in the early days. And he said, Greg, if you're going to go and help elite sport and be involved in the coaching structure of an elite sporting organisation, just make sure you're not a threat to anyone else. You're going to bring knowledge about a whole range of different fields, but you do what you do. You do that better than anyone, and you'll be very, very welcome in the room. And I think what he's talking about there is leave your ego behind. Just do what you do so well, and then step out. Because if you come in and try and take over the church of other people, what are they going to do? They're going to feel threatened and probably block you a bit.
Absolutely. Look, everyone has a role, and everyone has a need to feel important. And there's nothing wrong with a little bit of encouragement. And if someone else gets a few of the accolades along the way, well, all well and good. That's just part of the whole team.
Beautiful. Well, let's sum it up with a few final questions we ask all of our gurus and chiefs.
Okay.
What is the next thing in your life you're most excited about?
The next thing I'm most excited about, I look every day. I still, if it's just my golf coaching, every day I pour through YouTube clips and all of these different blogs and things I'm a member of, just trying to find out better ways to do what I do. I'm still excited every day to learn something about golf swing or how people learn or how I can be a better golf coach. But I'm also a father, a husband. We've bought a property down at Phillip Island now. I'm not semi-retired, but a lot of people say, oh, you're semi-retired. But I just look forward to getting up and doing something. I mean, I'm a project person. My wife hates the fact that which has always been a problem. While I get excited and I start projects, and because I've got too many going, I don't finish a lot of them. So what am I really excited about is finishing some of the projects that I've started.
Fantastic. Now, what are you most grateful for in life?
Look, I no doubt my parents and the opportunity I had growing up they just gave me all the freedom to become who I became. And my dad was the original Darryl Kerrigan. He was just, it didn't matter how modest something was, he thought it was just fantastic. So I had a huge amount of encouragement, along the way.
Fantastic.
And that's, something I'm eternally grateful for.
How do people connect with you now to follow your work and learn?
I'm changing a few things. Basically, people can find me through the through our different websites. But I'm back home in Australia coaching recreational golfers now. I've had 25 years of being more than 6 months a year on tour, and so now I'm not doing that anymore. I'll do a few trips overseas. So I'm available, but I'm available online, which it's still great content, but it needs an upgrade through probably our puregolftraining.com website is a good place. To start.
It is.
Or the Yarrabeen Golf website. Find me through.
I'll put those on the website so people can check them out and go to them.
Look, I love coaching people of every level. So I've got a couple of 70-year-olds here where I've actually got them moving a little bit better because, once again, I've identified in their swing, it's not that they don't understand how to play, it's just their body's not letting them play.
Mobility.
The way that. So we're doing some stuff to mobilise them, but also making some changes technically so that they can enjoy their golf again. And seriously, I enjoy that just as much as working with a tour pro coming down the stretch.
Magic. Can you nominate another guru or chief that you hold with great respect you think should be on the podcast?
I've been lifetime friends with Ian Baker-Finch, and I know Ian is going to be back out in Australia in the next couple of months. So if you get a chance, it's another look. I've met lots of great, successful businessmen over the years, but as somebody that I grew up in my early days of professional golf, I shared the house with him the week that he won the British Open, and to see him set a goal nearly 10 years before, he told me we were in New Zealand, he said, I'm going to win the British Open. And to watch somebody go through that process and win the British Open and then seemingly or immediately afterwards lose everything. But if there's a guy as a player and then make a great career for himself as a corporate outing host and commentator, and he's just Ian's pretty special. I think a lot of people would love to hear his.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more of his story. Yeah. Okay, we'll try and track him down. Now, the question I normally ask is this: if you could lead one organisation, not your own, what business would you like to lead? However, I might change it for you. I'm going to give you two questions. Right? Yeah. The first one is, if you could coach one golfer on the planet, who would that be?
I'm going to ask you a question. For what reason am I wanting to coach this person?
Because you think there's more in them than you've seen, and you want them to achieve their potential.
Look, I can't name one person, but I've seen a lot of people go the wrong way in their careers and make the wrong decisions. And if you could wind back time, I'd like to get them all together in a room based on hindsight and say, guys and girls, you're about to go down this path.
Yes,
it's the wrong way.
It's the wrong way.
This is the way to go. I couldn't pick out an individual.
Okay.
I've seen, and frustratingly, I've worked with a lot of those people, and I know I've made a lot of mistakes. And I was part of the problem. Part of the problem, and you'd like to wind that back again, and based on what we've learned, start again.
Now, the other half of the question then is, if you could win any golf tournament as a player, which tournament would you choose to win?
Any golf tournament as a player, for me, it'd be the British Open.
British Open.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Because you've got to play to win the British Open.
You do.
Hit every type of shot. Yeah. And it's not that one-dimensional game where you've got to fly the ball 300 metres and hit these high towering long irons and cut the spots off it.
Now, final question. This is for you to wax lyrical and send a message to all the listeners out there and say, listen, what is a final message of wisdom and hope you think is vital for the next generation of executives and professionals, really, of any type?
Learn to find out, to simplify, find out what works, and stop doing all the stuff, all of the filler around it that we think we have to do, because that's what's been done in the past. I mean, why are we doing this stuff? I mean, how is it actually helping? So to just filter out all the stuff that doesn't really help us get where we want to go. But my final message is reframe learning to love what you do. The moment you stop loving what you do, I think that's when things start to unravel, and then we do start to react, and our motivation for doing things becomes probably not the right motivation. So if we love what we do, and then we can analyse what we do and realise that so much of this stuff is just wasted time and effort and energy, I think we'll have a lot more fun.
Steve Bann, thank you so much for coming on The Inner Chief.
My pleasure. Thanks, Greg.
Righto, Chief, that sums it up for this week. All the links and resources can be found for this episode at chiefmaker.com/325. Now, Chief, if you're yet to rate the episode and subscribe, I hope you'll do so soon. It helps others see the magnificent value that the chiefs and gurus on the show bring to their life and career. So make sure you hit subscribe on your podcast app now, give it a 5-star rating if you think it's worthy, and leave a short review about your favourite episode. Righto, Chief, as always, remember to stay happy.